Once again, my dear listeners, I have returned this Wednesday, the 18th day of October 2023, to continue reading chapter 6 of my book titled Testimony of a Gambian Military Officer and Diplomat. I am your reader and the author, retired Lt Colonel Samsudeen Sarr, the former commander of the Gambian National Army. In chapter 5, concluded with the selection of Captain Hamad Charen and myself by the leaders of the military takeover in the Gambia on Friday, the 22nd of July 1994. At that point, we were contemplating how to urgently form a new government, a critical requirement and the necessary steps to normalize the situation and restore the country and the armed forces to their usual state. So join me in chapter 6 to learn how we successfully accomplish everything during the second, third, and fourth days. Let's begin. Chapter 6. Averting military intervention from Senegal. There I stood, entrusted with aiding the normalization of a situation in which I had no hand in planning or creating. I felt like the proverbial square peg in a round hole, grappling not only with where to commence, but also how to present a commendable image of the military as a worthy replacement for the seasoned outgoing PPP government. A profound thought struck me. Why not seek the counsel of General Abubakar Dada? His insights could be invaluable in guiding us forward. I put forth my suggestion explaining that the Nigerian general's recent treatment by the PPP government might be a leverage point to extract guidance. Given his high rank and extensive experience, Nigerian military officers like him must possess comprehensive knowledge about the establishment and stabilization of a new administration in a post-military takeover situation. Lieutenant Haja Jane promptly agreed and even added we could even offer General Dada an advisory role here in the Gambia as an incentive for his assistance. With a sense of purpose, we instantly reached out to General Dada at his Fajarab residence, and to our relief, he exhibited a cooperative and willing attitude, ready to extend his support and wisdom to the cause. He was indeed thrilled to learn that we intended to retain him in the Gambia as an advisor. When we inquired about the cardinal steps following the government overthrow, he swiftly responded, "Your first priority should be to establish a replacement government immediately, ideally no later than early tomorrow morning." He then advised us to convene a meeting with the diplomatic corps in the country, preferably scheduled for the following morning as well, during which we should brief them on the new government's formation and provide insights into the motivations behind the coup. The intention, he said, will be to convey that the coup was organized not to seize power and cling to it indefinitely, but rather to quickly address the long-standing political and economic issues left by the previous regime, followed by an expeditious return to civilian rule. After engaging with the diplomats, he added, the next important people to invite are the religious leaders in the country for a similar meeting. Every piece of guidance the general offered that evening resonated profoundly, and we expressed our special gratitude, promising to get back with him shortly. The responsibility of notifying the diplomats and religious leaders fell upon Captain Hamad Charen, scheduled for the following morning. Meanwhile, all present unanimously agreed that I would draft the inaugural speech, an assignment in line with my reputation as the Army's wordsmith. Retrospectively, a few months after the Nigerians assumed command of the Gambian National Army in 1992, their initiative to identify and cultivate the most capable senior officers for future leadership roles led to a 2-week training program culminating in the submission of a thesis detailing the Army's historical backdrop, its present state, and its anticipated trajectory over the ensuing decade. Colonel Akoje, the driving force in the endeavor, acknowledged my exceptional performance, ranking me at the top among all course attendees. But despite this recognition, the results didn't alter their intended course of action. They merely requested an extension of their 2-year contract that had started in 1992 and was supposed to end in 1994. They promised the Gambian government to further nurture the GNA measures in preparation for future command without specifying a timeline. The government neither questioned nor pressed them for a deadline. That second Nigerian Army Training Assistant Group program of perpetual training from 1994 onwards was subsequently to be headed by their new commander, Colonel Lawel Guadebe. Moreover, my reputation as an international writer was solidified in 1982 with the publication of my first book, a novel, Meet Me in Conakry, under the esteemed British Macmillan Publishing House. This accomplishment emerged soon after my graduation from the Gambia College, where I trained as a school teacher. Despite skepticism within the country regarding my ability to write a book at my educational level, I persevered. Even the Gambia's Director of Education at the time, who held a master's degree from a foreign university, disbelieved the notion that I could write an internationally published book. However, with determination, I sought assistance from Mr. Swanding Konare, an American-educated journalist who had a wealth of experience and expertise in writing. Having reviewed the manuscript within 2 days, Mr. Konare confirmed its possibility for international publication. In 1981, I embarked on a journey to America, and by 1992, Macmillan had successfully published the book, which soon became a well-received bestseller throughout Africa and beyond. After that, I had continued to work closely with Mr. Konare, and together we shared mutual respect and admiration in our quest to become better writers. He was a very honest man, exceedingly brilliant, and widely regarded as one of the finest writers ever in the Gambia. I proceeded to explain to the officers who Swanding Konare was, outlining his remarkable capabilities and explaining why I believe seeking his assistance in crafting a compelling speech was imperative. In the absence of any viable alternatives, I emphasized that I couldn't undertake the task of composing the speech alone. To my relief, they wholeheartedly endorsed the suggestion. Our consensus further led us to an agreement to appoint him as the interim Secretary General of the Civil Service. The following morning, a group of officers was dispatched to his residence in the Pakunda to extend an invitation to him to join us at the State House. However, just as we were preparing to conclude our last deliberation for the evening on July 22nd, 1994, pandemonium erupted near the entrance area of the State House premises. This sudden commotion sent shivers down my spine momentarily, convincing me that the dreaded armed conflict I had feared had finally erupted. The source of disturbance turned out to be Second Lieutenant Singate, who had just appeared along with Lieutenant Topper. Their unexpected appearance was accompanied by threats of violence against those who had convened a meeting in their absence. Singate's harsh words reverberated through the air, amplified by the presence of soldiers brandishing an array of weapons. Second Lieutenant Topper just stood by his side, seemingly devoid of any inclination to pacify the escalating tension. Fortunately, Edmund Samate eventually managed to calm Second Lieutenant Singate's rage. Subsequently, I later learned that they had returned to the radio FM station that very evening, where Second Lieutenant Edmund Samate delivered an additional speech aimed at reasserting the authority of the actual leaders of the coup and counteracting the speech earlier delivered by Lieutenant Sekuba Barrow and Captain Mamadi Sane. Edmund read, "Fellow Gambians, this country has now come under the control of the Gambia Armed Forces. The previous PPP political regime has been completely overthrown, and former head of state Sir Alhaji Dembo Jawla has fled the nation. Some former ministers and officials have also been apprehended and are in secure custody. An interim ruling council composed of Lieutenant Haja Chane, Lieutenant Kending Singate, Lieutenant Keba Topper, and Lieutenant Edmund Samate has been established. This council hereby urges the general public to maintain civil order. We are pleased to report that thus far there have been no casualties, no instances of looting, and no reports of vandalism. However, it has come to our attention that the international media has distorted our actions and disseminated inaccurate information. The ruling council wishes to assure the public that its endeavor are solely dedicated to the welfare of the citizens. We implore all essential workers, particularly those in the medical field, the GPTC, and MSG staff to promptly resume their duties. Meanwhile, the public is free to continue their regular daily activities while adhering to the imposed curfew. Thank you. The idea of forming a four-man military council in order of seniority was not shared with me that evening, which indeed happened when I left the State House to my residence. It was not until the next day that Captain Charen informed me about how the five of them, that was Captain Charen, Lieutenant Jane, Second Lieutenant Singate, Second Lieutenant Topper, and Second Lieutenant Samati, convened the meeting to form a ruling military council and choose its members based on seniority. The council was called the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council, AFPRC, with Lieutenant Haja Jane chosen as the chairman and the next senior man, Second Lieutenant Kending Singate, given the vice chairmanship. Second Lieutenant Topper was third in seniority, and in addition to being a council member, he was appointed the Minister of the Interior, while Second Lieutenant Edmund Samate took the Ministry of Defense portfolio. Notwithstanding, soon after Singate was calmed by Samate, I decided to excuse myself and head home to see my family. Among the officers at the State House, I was the sole one married with children. Captain Charen was married before, but was divorced at the time. I spoke with my wife a few times throughout the day, but the urge to return home, explain the day's events, and attend to my personal matters was strong. Furthermore, a refreshing shower and a change of clothes were long overdue, having worn the same attire all day without a chance to eat. Exiting the compound, I found myself intercepted by Second Lieutenant Singate at the gate. Despite my attempt to avoid him, he approached me and surprised me with his normal, polite demeanor. "But sir," he began, employing the familiar tone of respect he used when he was my junior. "I thought you were supposed to stay and assist us. Why are you leaving?" "I am going to see my family. I'll be right back," I assured him. "Understood," he replied in a reasonable manner. The journey from Banjul to my house covered approximately 6 miles, with a few military checkpoints scattered along the usually unobstructed highway. At each checkpoint, soldiers halted my vehicle, but upon recognizing me, they extended compliments and allowed me to continue. Some soldiers appeared visibly intoxicated, and with others, quite talkative. All of them were profoundly animated. Upon my arrival home, my 2 boys, Muhammad, age 6, and Jamil, age 3, were sound asleep. My wife was awake and eager to discuss the events of the day. After attending to immediate needs, a shower, prayers, and a meal, my wife's curiosity led to a lengthy conversation. She inquired about the course orchestrators, the timing, the planners involved, and anything else that piqued her interest. Regrettably, I could answer only a portion of her inquiries. Her close relatives' inquiry the previous night about the rumored coup in town was, after all, accurate. "Things are still not yet normal out there," I explained to her. Eventually, she brought up the subject of the rumor circulating in town, alleging my direct involvement in seizing the radio station that morning in support of the takeover. That's not true, I assured her, then proceeded to recount the actual events and my reasons for visiting the radio station earlier that day. By 9:30 p.m., I was back on the road to the State House, being driven by a soldier whose name eluded my memory, despite his repeated attempts to remind me. Why I had a knack for recognizing faces, remembering the names of acquaintances remained a challenge. Around 9:45 p.m., I arrived at the State House to discover a tense atmosphere among the soldiers and officers. Disturbing news had spread far and wide that the Senegalese armed forces were assembling their troops along our shared borders, poised to intervene and to thwart the coup, that they were only waiting final orders to move in. At that moment, nobody wished for or anticipated another armed conflict. Whether the information also factored in Samate's late-night radio broadcast or not was unclear. I soon learned that the three second lieutenants, Samate, Singate, and Topa, had made an unsuccessful attempt to meet with the Senegalese ambassador, Mr. Mukhtar Kebe, at his Cape Point residence in Pacau to discuss the matter. Unfortunately, the gendarmerie guards stationed at the gate denied them entry. Captain Charen and I quickly got into an SUV and headed towards the Diplomat's residence. As we arrived at the main gate of the Senegalese ambassador's compound, we were met by an armed gendarmerie guard who initially displayed a frosty attitude, seemingly unwilling to deal with us. Despite identifying ourselves as TNA captains on an urgent mission to speak with the ambassador, he remained resolute in his assertion that the ambassador had retired for the night. Undeterred, we adopted a most solemn tone, warning him of the dire consequences that could arise if he hindered our efforts to prevent a looming and possible devastating armed conflict between our two countries. Our warning appeared to swiftly sway the guard's disposition, prompting him to request our patience while he checked on the ambassador's wife. After a brief interval, he returned and extended an invitation for us to enter the well-kept compound, lined with meticulously trimmed flowers and featuring a concrete walkway topped with corrugated iron sheets. The pathway led us to a tastefully furnished veranda just before the entrance to the ambassador's house. Standing there to greet us was Mr. Kebe, a middle-aged man with a fair complexion who exuded a palpable air of professionalism. He explained that he had chosen to meet us due to our higher ranks, recounting how he had torn away a second lieutenant who had previously sought entry, a gesture that underscored the significance of our status as captains. It was well known the second lieutenant held the lowest rank in any military. It's a position reserved for newly commissioned officers with rudimentary training. Upon introducing ourselves to Mr. Kebe, we continue to uphold a high standard of professionalism. We candidly inquired about the veracity of the rumors concerning Senegal's military intervention in the Gambia. With a frank nod, Mr. Kebe confirmed their accuracy. He explained that Senegal's decision to intervene had been motivated by a misinformation, mistakenly characterizing the coup as an uprising led by low-ranking soldiers engaged in widespread looting and wanton destruction. He further clarified reports indicated that the insubordinate soldiers lacked both a cohesive leadership structure and a viable replacement government for the overthrown PPP government. Consequently, President Abdou Diouf had sanctioned the deployment of the Senegalese army to restore stability, drawing a parallel to a similar operation carried out in 1981 to support the PPP government. Mr. Kebe's next inquiry pertained to our identities as Gambian National Army officers involved in orchestrating the coup. We offered our unmistakable assurance that we were active duty Gambian National Army captains at the helm of the military takeover. Throughout our conversation, we maintained a composed and measured behavior, earning nods of approval from Mr. Kebe. In an effort to unveil the prevailing tranquility and orderliness of the surrounding area, we suggested embarking on a tour of the urban landscape alongside one of his trusted confidante, an idea he readily endorsed. Approximately an hour later, we set out on a guided expedition with his representative, systematically surveying pivotal locales within the vicinity. Our intention was to demonstrate the conspicuous absence of violence or chaos in these areas, implicitly underscoring the profound impact such disturbances would have on these vulnerable regions. We continued our journey, traveling from the Cape Point Road to Bakau, then proceeding onto Atlantic Road. As we drove, we passed by the imposing TSG Fajara Barracks, a prominent landmark, and made a left turn onto Kairaba Avenue, leading us into the upscale residence area known as Pipeline. These areas were home to some of the most affluent Gambians, representing both the public and private sectors. Interestingly, these localities were referred to by Gambian Marxist radicals as the epitome of capitalist bourgeois living. A sense of tranquility prevailed in the entire neighborhoods. Our route took us further along Kairaba Avenue until we reached Westfield Junction, where we made a left turn onto the Banjul Highway. The journey remained uneventful, marked only by a few vehicles discreetly flouting the night curfew announcement. At the Jimpex intersection, we encountered a military checkpoint. Briefly stopped by soldiers for identification, we were immediately allowed to proceed. Additional checkpoints were encountered at the Denton Bridge and near the Gambia High School, just before we entered the city of Banjul. Driving through Banjul streets, we followed Independence Drive, finally making a left turn onto Anglesey Street, then onto Buckle Street, and finally returning to Independence Drive. Our tour concluded back at the State House. It was at this moment that the Senegalese observer expressed his satisfaction regarding the absence of any significant turmoil that will necessitate military intervention from Dhaka. we drove back to the residence of the ambassador. In our presence, Ambassador Kebe reported the positive state of affairs to Dhaka, providing President Abdou Diouf with a favorable assessment before taking his leave to conclude the discussion. We extended a verbal invitation to him to join our scheduled meeting on the 23rd of July 1994 at 11 a.m. with all foreign diplomats stationed in the country. Where will the meeting be held? Mr. Kebe inquired. It will take place at the State House, replied Captain Charen. Accepting the invitation, Mr. Kebe assured us of his punctuality. As we made our way back to the State House, a sense of relief washed over us, as though we had narrowly escaped a major crisis. The day's events had been intense, and I found solace in the annex room adjacent to the main hall where Captain Charen, Lieutenant Haja Chane, Second Lieutenant Edmund Samati, and I rested for the night. The room was spacious, adorned with a deep red carpet and furnished with comfortable brown leather sofas and a large television set. The tardy summer rains in the Gambia that had caused unease within the farming community, fostering concerns about a potential drought in our agricultural nation, cheerfully arrived during the early hours of Saturday morning. Shortly past midnight on Friday, the brooding dark clouds in the sky resonated with loud rumbles, accompanied by a series of lightning bolts that illuminated the entire vicinity. The spectacle was followed by a sudden and heavy downpour of rain, while the brisk wind swayed tree branches, scattering dead leaves and broken limbs across the premises. It was as though the gods themselves were delivering a divine proclamation regarding the ongoing political transformation in the Gambia. So, folks, thanks for listening. This is the end of chapter 6. I will be reading chapter 7 on Friday. You guys have a nice day.